Let's do this. Perfect. Oh, good. Sandy started to come on in, and Constance is from Missouri. Very nice. Okay. And Kim is from Kentucky. Okay, we're getting from all over the places. Oh, Lucy said, I teach a lot of the yoga classes inspired by your book, Deborah. Isn't that sweet? Yes, I think we all kind of feel the same way. And so this is why I'm super excited to have Deborah Adele. You have, gang, Deborah and I have been in contact for several months to make this happen. She is going to be taking off to India in just a little bit, but let me read her bio and we'll get started. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to get some discussion with her. And you folks, hey, Chuck. Hey, Janine, nice to have you. Please hit me up in the chat if there's any questions you have. I took the questions from yesterday. I have some others that are that have questions already, but let me introduce Deborah Adele and we'll get to it, okay? So Deborah Adele is a distinguished figure in our yoga community. She holds a master's in liberal studies and theology. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about that. Certified, of course, in Kundalini yoga, Hatha yoga, yoga therapy, and meditation. She brings a wealth of expertise to her teachings. She is a versatile practitioner. She has been trained in Gestalt. She has been a somatic educator, integrating these seamlessly into our teachings, like many of us do with different backgrounds, bringing this information into yoga. She has worked with a consulting firm, blending concepts of the body and the breath in organizational development, skills, and enhancing leadership and business worldwide. She is not only the author of our level 2 book, The Yamas and Niyamas, right? If you took level 2 before 2009, this wasn't even available. So if you took it before then, you want to grab this book, okay? Yamas and Niyamas is now required since 2009 for our training. But she has now come out with The Kleshas. And we had a huge buzz in this community about this book when it was being released, and people were buying it before it was released, and we were all kind of talking about it, so excited about this. This one here and this one explore the ethical practices and the pursuit of happiness, especially as it relates to yoga philosophy. She is constantly employs her knowledge to guide yogis, like all of us, to achieve a life balance, clarity, and well-being. Currently, Deborah is devoted to writing, teaching, and her own personal yoga practice. Welcome. Thank you so much, Deborah, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everyone.
We've got, oh my gosh, we've got so many people popping on. Oh, thanks so much. Hi, y'all. Yes, that's a nice thing to say. So let's get started, okay? First of all, just a little recap about our beautiful Yamas and Niyamas book. A question that I like to ask people sometimes is, what is one Yama or Niyama that you are currently working on, or what is one of your favorites at the moment? Because I know all of them are the best. But is there something, Deborah, that you are finding kind of sitting at home with or practicing lately?
I keep going back to ahimsa, so the nonviolence. That is so deeply rich with so many levels of meaning, and especially, I mean, maybe especially today, but I could say that every day, especially in today's times.
I love that. I know we can take nonviolence into so many different levels and what that is. And I do love ahimsa because a lot of people will translate that as kind of the way of loving. And if you're loving, you can't be violent. But just to pull out a quote that you have from your book, and I kind of share this in classes here. So it's on, it's all about truthfulness and satya, but her connection that you have, or sorry, your connection that you have with ahimsa is so nice, that the compassion of nonviolence keeps truthfulness from being a personal weapon, right? So just kind of that connection with how you have the marriage of nonviolence and truth has a fluidity about it. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Well, I have come to think that really there's only one Yama and Niyama, which is nonviolence, and all of the other ones are to help us to understand nonviolence. And so what truthfulness does is keep nonviolence from being a doormat, and nonviolence keeps truthfulness from being a brutal weapon. And I find my definition of mastery right now currently is if I could use both of those simultaneously, I would call myself a master. like if I could be totally in nonviolence and totally in truthfulness, because they seem to kind of want to either wimp out or kind of be harmful. So that's my as I look at the yamas and yamas today, it's like, what is this next yama telling me about first do no harm? Because that's the under guiding current of everything. And if there's ever a question about anything, first do no harm, first do no harm. And maybe that's why I like that yama so much, because it's the go-to.
Oh, Deborah, that is so beautifully put. Thank you for sharing that. I don't think I haven't thought about it that way specifically. I like the way that we weave it all together, but to think about like, you know what, it's kind of like the master switch, right? Ahimsa might be the master switch and all the rest of it kind of come under it. And that kind of relates to with your new books, the Kleshas. I kind of feel like when we look at our Kleshas, right, we have the 5 Kleshas. The first time that I had ever heard of the Kleshas, I was like, oh, dang, this is the best. If I just know the 5 obstacles, I'm good to go. I have a happy life, right?
Right.
The other part is putting it into practice a little bit.
Right.
Yes. So, before we dive deeper into each of the Kleshas or talk about them a little bit, give me some background on what inspired you to write this book.
There were a couple of things. I think a lot of polarity, growing polarity in the country was interesting to me, but I grabbed my book here. There's a quote from I.K. Taimni, who is um, he was a Sanskrit scholar, and he wrote commentaries on a lot of the Yoga Sutra. And he says that the philosophy of Kleshas is really the foundation of the system of yoga outlined by Patanjali. It is necessary to understand this philosophy thoroughly because it provides a satisfactory answer to the initial and pertinent question, why should we practice yoga? And that was really this key kind of thing that grabbed me about, well, why am I practicing yoga? Why do we practice yoga? Is it because we feel better? Is it for our kind of ego thoughts about enlightenment or awakening or a better life? And so with what I came to understand from really reflecting on this statement is that if we understand our entanglement, which the Kleshas explain to us in philosophical terms in yoga, then we understand what the practice is. And otherwise, I mean, you could practice a long time and never really do the personal work unless you understand what that personal work is. And so I think that maybe that's what I want to say. The Kleshas tell us our personal work. I had someone read the book, a studio owner, and he said, pardon me, my language, but it was the best definition I've ever heard of the Kleshas. He said, well, after reading your book, I think I'd explain it as they tell me what my shit show is. Honestly, I have not come up with a better definition because yeah, because then okay, so now I know why I'm practicing yoga because I'm stuck in that.
Stuck in the mire, stuck in the weeds, or the unknowing, right? I mean, we can talk about the first one, right? Avidya. So the unknowing or the innocence or the ignorance as it's translated so often. Where did you find your translations or your way to the truth of it in English from Sanskrit? Because, I love diving into the concepts of Sanskrit because it's like learning something new and looking at it in a new way. How did you
Right.
come to your versions of it?
I read commentaries of I.K. Taimni and Edwin Bryant
Mhm.
and Pandit Rajmani Tiganayat and the V.S. Houston. Those were my four really good
Oh.
books that I read over and over and over again, trying to really look at the Sanskrit and their interpretations and all the meanings it could be.
That's amazing. I love looking and comparing at different translations to like kind of understand it. And then you do it in such a way with your not yamas and niyamas and your kleshas. You bring forward these concepts in a way that are so tangible. Like I think everybody who at least I've spoke to has read the yamas and niyamas and a lot of, the our yoga teacher training people, they talk about how easy it is to assimilate these ideas in everyday life because I think you show those examples so well.
I can tell you a story about that.
Yes.
Um, so when I wrote the Yamas and Niyamas, when I first read the Yamas and I found yoga late in life, and I thought, oh, I've got this. nonviolence, I'm not nonviolent, I don't do violence, I'm truthful, blah, blah. Let's go to the asana, I want to get my foot behind my head. And so I really thought I had it, just like the Kleshas, I thought I got that. And then the book came about, writing the book and publisher. And I wrote the first draft on the first 3 chapters. And I just sat there and I was writing. I've never had a writing class. I don't consider myself an author, but I'm writing all of this. And then thinking, oh yeah, this is great, and I gave it to the publisher, and they both read it and came back to me in about 4 days and basically said, this is crap. So I went home and I cried for 5 days like a good yogi, and I wasn't going to write the book. And the reason I'm telling all of you this is because I'm sitting in meditation and sort of through tears and reflecting, and this voice came, so what? But the so what was so what do the yamas and niyamas really mean in today's time, in your own life? What do they mean? And that's when everything changed with my writing, with my teaching, with my reflections, with my reading. It's like, so what? This is all beautiful stuff that I think I have, but do I? And bring it home. So actually, when I wrote, I was an avid reader. And when I wrote the Yamas and Niyamas, I didn't read anything for the 2 years that I wrote the Yamas and Niyamas, because I just wanted to pay attention to what I was hearing in the store, how parents were treating their children, what thoughts were going through my mind, like just what was there. And that's really where all those stories came from, was just that, instead of reading about it, like paying attention to it. So that was a really major experience in my life, because it was so different than how I was doing my life, thinking I understood stuff and reading all about things and just paying attention, and especially internally.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that helps us to kind of understand why they're so relevant, right? The examples that you give to us, it's like you took that time to really listen and observe around us. And I guess that comes to a good point that actually Rod asked us yesterday online. How do we make these kleshas and the yamas niyamas into a daily practice, not just learning about them, but really developing a daily practice so these become a habit within us?
Yeah. I think to take little chunks, like one yama or one klesha, and live with it for at least a month. Like just focus on something small, not the big picture, and reflect on it daily, live with it, watch it, ask it questions. For me, instead of thinking I know what it means, it's like I think of it as a living entity that's out here teaching me, like it's my teacher for that month. And it's teaching me about whatever that is, whatever that klesha is, or whatever, so that I'm learning instead of um, trying to absorb knowledge. I'm just trying to be a student instead of a better teacher, I guess. The better student I am, I think the more I have to share.
Okay, so we have 5 kleshas, so that means we could at least do it twice a year, each klesha,
Oh,
right? And keep going
really,
through it.
oh, they get deeper and richer the more we live with them. Yeah. Yeah. And the context is always changing for them, because our lives are changing, our environment around us, our relationships are changing. So they always have something a little bit different to share with us, to show us, to guide us.
I feel like any yoga philosophy, like just learning it in the beginning is kind of like a baby starting to learn new steps, right? It's like, wait, what is going on? What is the yamas and niyamas? Wait, what is the kleshas? Okay, how do I say this in Sanskrit? If you say it, and if not, right, the English is completely fine. But then it's like a great book. When you read it the first time, you're like, oh, okay, I think I got it. Then you read it again in another time in life, perhaps, and you get a whole nother understanding of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And you cycle it with your practice. So all the philosophies to guide the practice. And then the practice takes us back to the philosophy, and the philosophy to the practice. So we're always deepening. It's
There's
so exciting.
always new layers. Yeah.
So
how do you find with your master's degree, not only in just in liberal studies, but also theology, how do you bring theology and marry in the idea of yoga philosophy?
Personally, or am I teaching?
Both. You get to answer it how you want.
Um, well, I'm married to a Lutheran minister, so
Mm,
uh, I do a lot of translating at home because that's how we have rich conversations. I find there is so much richness in seeing the Christian view and the yogic view and how where they meet, where they don't meet. And by understanding one or having a view from one perspective, it enlivens the perspective of the other. And so there is just a rich field of learning, playing with them back and forth. And for instance, like if you take the yamas and niyamas and the Ten Commandments, it's you're looking at relationships, you're looking at right living, about how to be in harmony. And then I look at where it's in the context, and in the context of the Older Testament, they're given by Moses right before the people are to go into the promised land. Well, why is that? They're to be a different kind of people, in a way, of people who live in harmony, of people who are a light. And when we look at the yamas and niyamas, they're put right at the beginning of the yoga journey. And so, right, how do we get to enlightenment? How do we get to awakening? How do we get to our wholeness? You have to start with the yamas and niyamas. You have to start with right relationship with yourself and with your practice and with other people and et cetera, with the world. And so it's always those two things are like, wow, there's something really powerful at the beginning of something new, of something different, of some gift that's going to be given. Yeah.
Now, gang, if you're watching right now and you have a question, I'm taking a peek over into the chat and trying to watch it as it goes by, because we're seeing where everybody's coming from as we're here. So it's nice to see people from Georgia and Alabama and coming from Texas all the way through up through Michigan and Missouri and Florida. So thank you, gang, for keep saying that. If you are in the comments right now and have a question for Deborah Adele, please try to hit me up. Oh, hey, okay. Let's see, watching from Texas. Oh, I love it. Yes, everybody loves, let's see, we got every Klesha has a different perception of life. Ooh, I love that. Okay, so let's link up to what you were just talking about, Deborah. There was a question that I got yesterday from Kristen, and she wanted you to address, how do you talk to individuals that say that yoga is not of their belief system or actually against their belief system?
I find that very difficult, and I have a lot of that in my teaching. And some people just aren't open to that. But I think for myself, I can only speak to the richness that I find in it. And I think that's all I can do. There's a lot
I
more things I'd like to say, but I think it's really um, to speak from the enlivening that comes from your own experience of letting different traditions help you understand your own. They just give life to your own. They don't take anything away from it. They give.
Yes, I love that. That's kind of a way to bring it together so that you follow the path that is right for you and learning what supports you, right? Looking and examining our beliefs and strengthening what feels right for us. And I feel like all of yoga philosophy can help that, um, along the way. We do have a question in here, kind of going back to our yamas and niyamas. Would you be able to explain Santosha a little bit more for someone in our audience?
Oh, that's such a great one, isn't it? Contentment. I mean, yeah. I heard Adi Shanti say not too long ago, be content even when you're not. And I thought that was just summed it up so well. So I think the Kleshas help us understand Santosha a lot too, because two of the last, second and third from last, are this kind of oscillating between grabbing onto what we want and pushing away what we don't want. So our mind's always going, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. It's just crazy thing. And so we're always having ourselves out of contentment because it's never right. We're so busy. So again, that be content even when you're not. It's just at the ashram, when I studied with Mataji, she was always stay established. Life goes like this. You don't have to go with it. Stay established, stay established. It's what Krishna says to Arjuna, you know, alike, alike, alike. It's balance. The whole secret of balance is that sense of staying established, staying stable, which means content, even when you're not.
It's kind of, I think, going back, like what you said, weaving this into the kleshas, when we start to understand these obstacles or these things that get in our way, if we kind of know what it is, then maybe we can hurdle them a little bit easier. How do you put the kleshas?
How do I, with it?
Yeah, how do you summarize the kleshas or kind of give people the background about them? Because you say it's about, you know, exploring our elusive happiness for so many people.
I think that we think we know what's going to make us happy, and because of the misunderstanding, there's a couple of things. One is we don't question our beliefs or our reality. What we think is reality, we think is reality, and we don't step outside of that. So there's that beginner's mind that again begins to open our mind that we're invited into. So that's one thing. But the other thing is um, not fighting for our beliefs, but examining them. And then just when you know what has you entangled, you just you get to work with it instead of against it. So we're always looking outside of ourselves for our happiness. And again, that's what takes us out of contentment, is we're looking out here, and it can make us happy. Sometimes people can, things can, events can, successes can, but the nature of the world is to change. And so it's not lasting. And so we're always trying to hold on to that or push away what we think won't make us happy. Understanding that we're doing that, seeking happiness, is a way that understanding that can bring us back to knowing that the only happiness that lasts all the time is this being in line with the higher reality and sourced from inside ourselves. So we can then play with the kleshas, we can play with our limits, but not in a way that has us entangled, but in a way that brings us pleasure. That's what's so interesting about the kleshas, is they can keep us really miserable while we're looking for happiness, or they can give us vignettes of freedom and joy and pleasure when we understand what they are and sort of how this world works from the yogic perspective. Because I think the yogis they want to understand it and get on the good side of it so that they could enjoy it and then maybe see what else there was once they were on the good side of it.
Gosh. It's fun that you say to play with them. I love that concept. You know, it makes it not such a, you know, you really need to learn these things, or just you get to explore and experience this, which is so neat. I was speaking with somebody who just finished your book, and she's a client. I recommended her to take a look at it and read it. And she goes, Leslie, I'm 60 years old. I have been in this Maya for 60 years. I can't believe I didn't know this, that I can play with this, like you're saying, or look at it in a different way. And she's like, this is going to change my life. I wish I would have known these things earlier. That's what I always say about yoga philosophy. I wish I would have known some of these things earlier.
Say that too. Yes,
I guess it's an ever learning process, right?
right, for sure.
Now, gang, we are going to be giving away a book. And so I want to see in our chat right now, hashtag happiness, because the Kleshas is all about this elusive happiness. So I'm going to pick somebody randomly from hashtag happiness as it comes up. So you need to be putting some comments into the chat. You can write happiness or hashtag happiness. I want to see these things, and we'll start. When I look down, I'll pick somebody at random, and it will be the winner for our signed edition of the Kleshas by Deborah Adele. So I'm so excited for somebody to win this, and it is Lucy Arnett. Oh my gosh, Lucy, thank you so much for being here during our time. You are going to reach out to admin@yogafit.com and I will get you connected with the book. So you need to reach out to admin@yogafit.com and we'll make sure that happens. Now, as we wrap up, I am so grateful for you to be here, Deborah, to take this time to be with our community. We have such a beautiful, amazing community that sticks together. We call it a YogaFit family because I always say once in YogaFit, always in YogaFit. Even if we don't necessarily cross paths sometime soon, we're on the same journey. So we'd like to hear, what are you doing next? What are you thinking about next?
What I'm thinking about next is really spending time in my personal practice. I'm in my 70s, so I get to do that now. It's like really focusing on that. That's become more and more important to me. So I'll be doing that in India for a month next month, and just in my practice and study.
So you're taking this trip to India for you.
Yeah, for my practice and study, for yeah, that personal sadhana.
Oh, I love that. That is so fabulous. Before we wrap up, gang, I just want to let you know about a few things that YogaFit has on its calendar. You can always head over to events and you see that we have special events and weekly series coming up at the end of this month. Happens to be Wake Up to Better Sleep. At the beginning of next month, Yoga for Sexual Health. That is for everybody across the board. We also have the Yoga Lean 2024 coming up on February 24th. And then, of course, the course on Kirtan. So that's a 1.5 hour weekly, or sorry, just a special event that happens to be in March. So always take a look out for that. We've got great comments in here, Deborah, about thank you so much for your books and sharing all of your wisdom. We all love him, and you can tell by how many people showed up on this live webinar that you've truly have impacted so many lives with your writing on these 2 books. Thank you so much for being here. We wish you all the best and can't wait to hear from you soon. Take care.
Thank you all.